Hi, everyone. My name's Carmen Cole, and I am the social media editor for Portal, Libraries, and the Academy. I'm pleased to welcome Allison Hosier, head of the Information Literacy Department at the University of Albany, to speak about her article entitled The Role of Research in Creative Writing, a Follow-Up Study. This article can be found on Portal's preprint site in Volume 24, Issue 4. The article is free to read, and viewers may access the article by navigating to the Johns Hopkins Preprint site for Portal. So, Allison, the study that you conducted for this article is a follow-up to your 2002 Portal article on the role of research in creative writing. What inspired you to turn back to this research topic? And could you please tell us a little bit about the findings from the first study?
So as an information literacy scholar, I'm really interested in the contextual nature of research. So how the research process is different depending on what type of research you're conducting. So as a former creative writing student, I knew that research could be an important part of the creative writing process, but I wanted to find sources that would help me understand what those differences were. So originally I studied, I think, a couple of dozen of books about writing and over 100 published author interviews to learn more. So it was a lot of sources. And what I learned was really valuable, including that authors tend to favor hands-on research or direct interviews with experts. And I also saw a lot of references to creative license and creative liberty, which is manipulating or ignoring factual information in order to tell a better story. So that was an area that I was especially interested in learning more about because it's so different from scholarly research. And I figured the best way to do that was by talking directly with authors themselves. The trouble was figuring out how to get in touch with these authors, since I don't have a lot of connections in that world. And I doubt if I called up Stephen King's publisher and asked to talk to him about the research that he does, that they would connect me, but you never know. The book festival that we hold on our campus every year happened to be coming up. So I decided to use that as a starting point for identifying potential research subjects, because a lot of local authors tend to come and they have tables there and they show off their work. So it's a really great opportunity to meet our local authors and learn about their work. And lucky for me, I got some of them to agree to talk to me and participate in the follow-up study.
So give us a summary of your article published in this latest issue of Portal. Findings from this study compare or contrast to the previous study.
So what was great about doing this study was that it was a chance to talk directly with authors and ask them questions about their research processes. So before I was just using books and I just had to kind of rely on the information in the books, and you can't ask a book a question, unfortunately. This is an opportunity to actually ask for more information or ask to go into a little bit more detail about certain things. So through my conversations with these authors, I was able to confirm a lot of what I had in the original study, like the importance of hands-on research and direct interviews with experts as being sort of the preferred kind of source that a lot of authors use, or at least the ones that I talked to. And I also got to learn more about their attitudes and experiences with creative license and how and when they're willing to manipulate or ignore factual information to tell a better story. And one thing I learned that I wasn't necessarily thinking about when I started was how COVID affected the research process. So probably all the writing books that I read for the original study were written before COVID. And so a lot of them portrayed research as something that involved a lot of travel. And when I started doing these interviews, it was 2022, so we were still in the midst of COVID. And many of the authors and writers I talked to talked about how COVID had affected their travel plans or ability to, for example, visit museums or other places where they could handle objects in person to give them a better sense of those objects, so that they could write about them better. So that was really interesting. And I also learned more about how authors learn how to do this type of research, which seems to mostly be through trial and error or talking with other writers about their research processes. So in other words, it's not something they learn in a classroom. like other parts of the creative process might be, especially, if they've been creative writing students like I was. I certainly don't remember learning about that aspect of the creative process when I was a student. So it was really interesting to learn more about how they learned to actually do that research and apply it to their creative work.
We were just talking before, we recorded, and you and I both have degrees in creative writing.
Yes.
Echo that. I certainly learned like the research aspect when I was
Mm,
doing it, more centered around technique and
mm,
the ability to workshop and provide feedback and things like that.
yes.
So, what is your big takeaway from your article for Portal readers?
Yeah, so creative research is a big topic that I think tends to get ignored in our literature. So we have tons of studies about how students and academics and people in professional jobs like lawyers and doctors find information or interact with information as part of their work and what their information behavior looks like. But really, there's very few studies about how creative practitioners do research in the context of their creative process and what that looks like, which is important to understand if we really want to have a full picture of what research is. Otherwise, I think, we risk delegitimizing these important processes simply because they don't match up with academic or scholarly ideas about what research is supposed to be. So my own research, I hope, adds to that knowledge from a creative writing standpoint, but research is also involved in all kinds of art and creative projects, including visual art and songwriting and television and movie production. And I think it would be great if more researchers out there in our field pursued this knowledge so that we could kind of fill in what really feels like a big gap to me. And like I said, one of the challenges is, if you don't have a lot of connections in that world, kind of figuring out, well, how do I actually contact people in that world to serve as research subjects. And I got very lucky with the book festival on my campus, but looking for creative ways or even indirect ways, I started out by researching and looking at books about writing and published author interviews rather than starting with talking to authors right away. And I learned a lot from doing that. So there are a lot of different angles to come at it from. But yeah, it's definitely a big gap in our field that I think is really important to pay attention to and find ways to fill if we can.
I think it'd be really interesting to work with or survey or, just speak to librarians that are supporting the arts as
Yes, yeah,
to see how they have worked with creators to do research. That could be really interesting too. So,
I think so. Yeah, that would definitely be really interesting.
all right. So thanks for speaking to us about your article.
Yeah,
Again, viewers may read the article for free via the Johns Hopkins Press preprint site for Portal. So thanks everybody for watching today, and keep an eye out for our next interview. Thanks a lot.
thanks so much.